This is my American Standard Freedom 80 comforter. What's happening is when there is a heat requirement, the heat is the gas is burning, and you can hear that it's burning, but there is no fan coming on. And if you look inside, you will be able to see that the blinking red light is on. So let me show you here. If you can see, the red light is lighting on. So something wrong with the fan, and I'm going to show if we can fix the fan here. I'm going to take this cover off. This is very easy here. Now, one thing is, this will require you working with electrical panels and motors. So if you're not comfortable, you shouldn't try that. So I'm going to turn the machine off, or the power to the machine off. So I have it conveniently located right next to the panel attached to my machine. And I'm going to remove all the sections, because I need to get to that motor. And I will probably show you right here. That's the blower motor behind there. And this has a circuit board there, and usually that's the circuit board, a part in that circuit board that goes bad. So I'm going to check that. And to get to the motor, you have to remove the whole cage, and that's going to take a little while. But as long as you remember what you did while taking off, you may want to take pictures, and then you will be able to put it back in. So I have done this before once, and these motors are made by GE, and they have variable speed motors in there. So the circuit actually makes the motor go slower or faster. So that's the way they do it with the circuit. In the cheaper models, they have a one-speed motor, which are much better, I would say, in terms of it doesn't go bad with the circuit. It also costs less. And these motors are new to replace. If you get somebody to do it, it will be probably $800 to $900 plus service charges. And what I'm going to show you is if we can get that fixed. Though it looks pretty complicated with all the wires, it's not that difficult. So the main things that are there to take out is this circuit board. So you see the circuit board has a couple of bolts right there. There is one bolt right here and the other one right here. So I'm going to remove those first, and then this little transformer is sitting so that it blocks my access to the squirrel cage in the back and the motor. The squirrel cage also has a few bolts, and all these bolts are 8 millimeters. So you can see one here and one on the other side. And it's pretty simple. The thing that you need to be concerned about is are the wires here. So you take off as much as you need to get access to the squirrel cage and the motor in the back. So I'm going to first remove this one. And remember, most of these have a tab in there. You depress the tab and there is a lock, and it removes it. Now if you look at it, it cannot go the other way. It will always fit the same way. So you should be okay. I'm just going to leave it hanging here. And then the other one is from the motor in the back. There are two connectors, and the same way there is a tab here and it comes off. You can see the tab right there. And also there is the other one right here, and there is a similar tab right there, and on the side, actually top and bottom, and that comes off. Now these, you have to remember that this loop goes on the top. So I have unplugged the wires mostly. I might need to take a couple of more, but I'm going to leave these as it is. Probably also remove this one. So these connectors, and you can see these. So once you remove the screws, this panel will come off. You can just pull it out, and you can see the tabs that goes into those little channels. So pretty much out of the way. I'm going to remove these two. So I was able to take this bolt out. It's easier over here, and you can see it's a bigger bolt than the other ones. I'm going to use one of my other nifty tool. This is like a flexible extension from Neiko, N-E-I-K-O. If you plan to do something like this where it helps you to do it by flexing a little bit, so I don't have to have any problems with the clearance to rotate my my ratchet in there. So I'll connect this and use that. So I removed the second bolt, and you can see what makes it easier is I could put that in, and I had a pretty nice free play over to rotate it. Otherwise it was difficult to rotate it. So once you do that, you can just pull this whole thing, and it's sliding. You can see it slides in those panels, in those notches right there. So I'm going to pull this out, and the whole motor with the squirrel cage will come out. And you can see I have put these aside. So I have not taken any other wire. I don't want to disconnect any more than I need to take the squirrel cage out. So these screws take 1x4, a quarter socket, and these are long screws, so you can set them aside too. With the two bolts out, you can remove this, and you will see that there is a harness there. I'm going to take that harness out. Again, it goes only one way, so you don't have to worry about this going in the wrong direction. So what I noticed is this plug didn't come off easy, and what I see is I had to use some force to pull it out, and you can see that this is burned and it came off from there, so there might be a different issue. I'm going to remove these screws. There is one right there, it's hiding in there, and those two screws, and then I should be able to see the back side of it and what damage this stage is in. So the last time what happened was there is a thermistor, thermal resistor right there, that usually burns out, and that's the one I had changed. And if you look at the bottom, this is where it had burnt out, and I had soldered it back, and it worked pretty well. I don't think this is the problem here. And if you look at yours, you can see some burnt marks in there, but I think this is fine. The problem is with this unit here. So this is all burnt out, and that's where it was not working. So I have to see how I can replace that part, if I can. This whole circuit board is embedded in here. I don't want to go and fix anything. It would be too much of a hassle to fix it. I'm going to find a replacement, and I already saw some replacement on eBay, and most of them are either discarded pieces where the owner had changed their machine. Now, one thing you need to know is what is this make. So These were originally GE motors. So you can see the label over here, and it says ECM. The important part is what is the version of it. So this is a 2.3. You can see ECM 2.3, and then there is a number CP02. So those are important ones because those are all part of this particular machine or the ECM motor, and you want to replace as close as possible to that. Now there are other numbers here. You can see that there is the manufacturing date right here for 4/30/2006. What is the HP of the motor? So it shows here 1 HP. So this is a 1 HP motor, ECM 2.3. That's what I'm going to look at. Right here you can see that it is the rotation is counterclockwise. So that's another important thing. You need a counterclockwise rotation, and also you can see this MOT number, MOT 99233. So revision 1. So that's another one. Now for the motor, you can see that this socket also, the connector also has burned. So something happened to the motor. What I'm going to do is I'm going to check the motor, and usually I found both the motor and the ECM, the module together. So I'm going to probably replace both of them. I was able to take the little bolt which is holding this thing, but the fan over here. So but this is not going to come out. I tried to hammer it and it did go a little bit, but I'm pretty much stuck. So what I did was I removed these little screws. I have a very small socket here, like this, and these little screws are attached to it, so I can take out the fan. So I released these two screws. So these two screws go right there, and it clamps in right here, and it clamps in right there, just like the screws here. So I was able to make a little bit more space so that I can take the fan with the motor on, and then I will try to remove the motor from the blade outside. Now to take the motor out, I have to remove these 4 brackets that's holding the motor, because these brackets, with these brackets, it will not come out with the squirrel cage and the motor. So I will remove this bracket. Now to remove this one, I'm using a 7/16 wrench, and I'm opening up this bolt here. So once that is open, I will be able to remove these brackets from here and then remove the motor. The biggest hurdle I faced was to remove the old motor from the squirrel cage, the blower part, which is attached here. Now what I did was, once you remove this one, you can spray some WD-40 or even PB Blaster. I had PB Blaster. I just used WD-40, and I also used a little sandpaper. I have some sandpaper. I just use the sandpaper to make this smoother, and then I started hitting. It wouldn't come off, so I started hitting with a hammer. I was able to push it out up to the top edge, and then I figured that it's getting stuck because I had hammered it down and it had created a little lip on the surrounding. So fortunately I had an angle grinder. So this is my angle grinder, and I use the angle grinder to grind away the edges a little bit, and then I was able to rock it back and forth, up and down, and finally it came off. I got a used motor on eBay which matches the numbers that I was looking for. So the main numbers you want to look for is on the motor. Here is the number, and then I will also look at this number here for the ECM, the controller part, and you need to have ECM 2.3. In my case, was also ECM 2.3. You can see the manufacturer date is 2008, which is 2 years newer than the one I have. And this matched perfectly. It was around $200 on eBay, including shipping. And so I'm going to put this motor and the controller, they together came as one unit, so which is good. Before I put everything together, I wanted to test the motor that I bought on eBay. So what I did was I hooked up, this motor is still not, it's just connected there. I've not bolted it yet. And I've connected the two harnesses wirings here. I connected the controller wiring, and then I connected these two. So I'm going to turn it on. So I came to the controller here, and I'm going to turn the air to circulate. So it should send the signal to start the motor, and let's see what's happening. Here I'm going to start the jumper. Make sure you don't touch anything that will get you electrocuted. Be careful on it. And here is the motor coming on. So since it doesn't have the squirrel cage, it's going to go up and down because based on the load. So I'm going to not run it too long. So I'm going to turn it off right now. So that looks good. I'm going to put it together and then see how that works. I'm going to just use my utility sink and hose this off. A lot of dirt coming out, which should give it a good cleaning. And then I will dry it and put the motor in. So to put this back, there is probably multiple ways to do it. What I'm going to do, I tried the other way, to put the motor with the squirrel cage first and then aligning it over here. And I faced some problems because the squirrel cage need to be aligned so that it's sitting without touching either of the side surfaces. And then if I try to tighten the clamps, the clamp that sits over here on the motor, it was very difficult to get access to this bolt to tighten the bolt here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the clamp inside here when the motor is outside, and put these in there, position it onto from outside while I will move this inside. Just make sure that you are putting the way it should go. So you shouldn't be reversing it, otherwise it will blow the air the opposite way. A few things to mention here. When you put the motor in, you will be putting in through this side. You won't know which side is the bolt going on the notch. So what I did was I marked it on this with a marker here. So in the other side, I have it, this bolt, you can see it's pointing to the top. So that needs to be aligned with the notch right here for the motor. So when I put the motor in, I will align this notch to go with the way this black marker is pointing to. That's one thing. The other thing is, when you put it in, you should put it in with this one going down, and the way it will go, you have to adjust based on how your furnace is configured. In my case, it sits like this, and this is going to be the top, this is going to be the front on this side. So the motor will sit right here, and I want this the controller to have these outlets towards the front. So this controller needs to go like this. It will sit right like this, and that's how I will position it. Now if you look at that inside, you see the connector to the motor is going to face downwards, so you will be able to figure it out. So I'm going to put the motor wire coming out downwards, so it will go in somewhere like this. It doesn't have to be exactly downwards, but I want to have these aligned so that it's mostly towards the bottom of the housing. So I did tighten the brackets for the motor, and then I pushed it down and made sure that there is clearance over here so it doesn't touch. If you see, there is clearance over here. It shouldn't touch any of the body when you're moving it. So that looks good. And as you can see, I have the notch, this flat surface of the motor, the rotor in there, in right aligned with where the this tightening bolt will go. So I'm going to tighten this, put the frame into the HVAC, and also I have to tighten these because I had to open these. This shouldn't be a big deal because this should align here, and I have little screws for those screws that are just little screws over here. So I connected the wiring harness in there. Make sure it's sitting properly, and you will see I have to align this bolt hole with this one, so just fits in here, and then I'm going to tighten these two screws. I'm testing the unit. I put it to heat, so hopefully the heat will start pretty soon. And it's running pretty smooth. I have to tighten some screws. Just wanted to make sure it's running.